Hello and welcome everyone to a new episode of Aux Fiends. I'm your co-host Mateo. Joined to me today is, as always, other co-host Rishabh. Rishabh, say hi.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Aux Fiends.
Yep, welcome back to Aux Fiends. If you're new here, basically what Rishabh and I do is every episode we alternate in picking an album and then we listen to it and then we deep dive in and talk about a little about the history, how we feel about the album with the album review, and each go over every single track and say if we liked it, didn't like it. Sometimes we throw around the word interlude.
Yes, we do.
Big, yeah, big pointer to the listeners though. For you guys, we definitely recommend to at least be familiar with the artist or the musician. And, feel free to listen to the album beforehand, or stop us track by track and go listen to the song if you'd like. We definitely think that helps with the listening experience and kind of be just familiar with what we're actually talking about. Kind of grounds you in. But I think that kind of leaves the intro as it is. I think without further ado, I'm going to throw it to Rishabh to kind of give us the history and tell us what the album choice he picked was.
Yeah, thanks for the intro. And as he was saying, right, I think listening to the album definitely enriches the experience. So definitely encourage you all to do that. But we are now on episode 14 of Aux Fiends, Mateo, almost up to that landmark 15 episode. And for today's episode, I have chosen the album Cinema by the Marías. So a little bit of background and history about this album in particular. So the Marías are an American indie pop band from Los Angeles. They perform songs in English and Spanish. They infuse music with elements like jazz percussions, guitar riffs, sort of smoke velvet vocals, and horn solos. The band is comprised of four members, the first one being Maria Zardoya, who is the leading singer in the band. She was born in Puerto Rico, raised in Atlanta, and she is joined by Josh Conway, who's a drummer, Edward James on keyboard, and Jesse Perlman on guitar. And interestingly, Maria Zardoya and Josh Conway, when they first met, they obviously became creative collaborators, but they were also in a romantic relationship for a while. At least at the time that this album was being made. So the album is called Cinema. It was nominated for a Grammy Award for Best Engineered Album Non-Classical. And it's actually their first studio album as a band that they did after releasing two EPs, Super Clean Volume 1 and Super Clean Volume 2. And they actually have a new album on the way soon. So this is, I promise I'm not paid for by the Marías or any sort of marketing company, but they do have a new album coming out, I think, I want to say this month, called Submarine, which is coming out soon. They've already released a few singles from that. So that's sort of the background around the Marías. But Mateo, before I get into it, I want to throw it to you to see, obviously, I want to hear your first impressions. And I had mentioned at the end of the last episode that this was a band that we've at least talked about, and I'd shared a few songs with you, and I know you were familiar to a degree. So before I get into my side, I want to hear your side on the Marías.
Yeah. We've definitely talked about them before. I won't lie, I wasn't super familiar. I had only really known one or two songs. I'm forgetting what they were called, but it was definitely on my indie playlist, and so at least that one song, and I was very familiar, and I really liked it. And so I guess I was more just I had open ears, open eyes, open ears for this album listening, and it definitely didn't feel like a curveball that you were throwing at me. It's because I do enjoy kind of the indie genre a little bit, and so I was kind of excited to dive in. You mentioned it last episode. Dive into your mind a little bit, what you've been listening to, because I'm definitely far from the fan that you are. I had only known the one song or two.
And honestly. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say it led to kind of a interesting experience with listening. At least the pre-listen, and then a little bit into it. But yeah, I'm also interested in your kind of thoughts, because did you I know you were the Marías fan, but did you had listed most of the songs off this album, or were you just of the stuff that they put out beforehand?
No, definitely a big fan. Honestly, And I wasn't sure if I should even pick this album because I don't know. There are honestly no rules of too many rules about what we can pick as albums. The only
Yeah.
rule that me and Mateo came up with is it should be a real album and not an EP or anything like that. So,
Mhm.
but the reason I was kind of hesitant is because I mean I'm such a big fan of the Marias, and I had been a huge fan of cinema for a long time. I constantly was listening to it. I'm still honestly constantly listening to it. I have known a lot about this band for a while. I've watched uh, videos about how they came up with the songs. I've seen the music videos, so on and so forth. But no, I mean, that's why I brought it up with you. Even off the mic, and had suggested you this a couple of songs. I don't know if you had heard like every single song on the album. I'm pretty sure you hadn't.
No. Before this, honestly, I don't think I had heard a single song off this album. If I'm being honest.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. So I mean, yeah, huge fan, and more than that, I think beyond being just a fan, I found a lot of their music to be, for me personally, very creatively inspiring. Like whenever I'm writing or doing things that outside of some of my other creative pursuits outside of Aux Fiends, I often have this album or their music sort of as a map, like a creative map, and from which I draw a lot of inspiration. Which actually reminds me, I wanted to mention some of the influences that the front person of this band, Maria Zardoya, had said just for her music. I think Mateo, you'll find this interesting before we dive into the actual album review. So some of her influences include Selena, Nora Jones, Nina Simone, Billie Holiday, Carla Morrison, Julieta Venegas, Eriaka Badu, and filmmaker Pedro Almodovar. And another interesting influence she cited, Mateo, is actually Sade, who we covered on our last episode. Yeah, so that's one of her influences.
Okay.
Meanwhile, yep. And meanwhile, Josh Conway, who's the other, who produces a lot of these tracks and is the drummer and also is a songwriter for a lot of them. He's been influenced by Tame Impala, Radiohead, D'Angelo, and The Strokes. So really an interesting mix between Maria and Josh Conway. So we'll get into that with the album.
Yeah, we will. But sorry to say, did you? I'm sorry if maybe I missed it. Did you say when this album came out?
No, you didn't miss it. Thanks. Good call. Yeah, this came out in 2021, and yep, first studio album.
Okay, yeah. Another debut album. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, this is a debut album. Well, they did have 2 EPs before this, which came out in 2017 and 2018, kind of respectively. So, but yeah, first full studio album for sure.
Gotcha. Okay. Unless you have anything else to say with any of their kind of history or about them, I think we can kind of just jump right in to the first track, Just a Feeling.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, Mateo, I'm gonna really be curious to hear your opinions on this album because I think anyone who's listening up to this point has already knows, like my opinions to an extent because as I mentioned, I'm a huge fan of this album. So I want you to start us off with the first track, Just a Feeling.
Okay, yeah. Well, I had a feeling, just a feeling. But I mean, I'll get it out there. It's the instrumental. Honestly, first impression of this song, because I'd never heard it, wow, beautiful, honestly. Mm-hmm. Like, I get why it was called cinema, at least just from this first track. It weirdly, it did sound like so familiar. I'm not sure if there, any history about it or something, but I really liked the instrumental. I thought it was a good opener. Definitely a cinematic opening. Honestly, it's funny because I wrote that down and I completely forgot that this album was cinema. Yeah. So it completely makes sense. I don't know if it's too far fetched. I don't remember exactly every I guess inspiration you said from the 2 kind of front runners of the band. Mm-hmm. But I got like a weird like Road to El Dorado almost like soundtrack vibe just from this.
Okay.
Like Elton John. So I'm like, okay.
Okay.
It was definitely, it started me off in a good place, I'd say.
Yeah, and it's a short track. I think I want to say it comes over just maybe, is it even a minute long, Mateo? Do you have the track list with you?
Yeah, I do. It's a minute 22 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. So it's an instrumental beginning, which is mostly kind of an orchestra plus guitar combination. and we're going to hear that combination used throughout the album. So this theme really sets up, I think, the tone for the majority of the album. You get a really good sense of the Maria's sound. You have a very lush, kind of velvety soundscape here. It's very dreamy, and obviously, like, you know, we're going to be using that word a lot. I think is that it's sort of cinematic sound and has this larger than life and sentimental feel to it. I always want to say sort of a melancholic sound as well. And I think that the tone of this album fluctuates a lot, but I think this is overall a good sense of the type of music you're going to be hearing throughout.
Definitely.
But yeah, short little instrumental track. As we like to say for almost every intro track, this is really the intro to the Marías sound.
Yeah, it really is the intro. Yeah.
And I really mean it this time because I feel that, you know, it really sets up a theme and a tone for the rest of the album. And I think it does it super well. So I think not much more even from my end to say about Just a Feeling.
No, honestly, you kind of hit everything. I feel like I would have said maybe, you know, you said it better, where you get that kind of cinematic. It's the opening for the whole album. You get that kind of the velvety kind of sound. It's, you know, it's the intro.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. All right. We move on to the second track, Mateo, Calling You Back. I can start if you want.
Yeah, you start, but I think it's important to say U is spelled just, you know, with the letter. Capital U.
Yes, good point.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. And it's interesting because I feel like this album, if there's one word I would use to describe it, and it kind of starts even from track 2, is it's very hyper stylized. I think that's true even with the naming of the songs, right? And you know, obviously it was nominated for a Grammy for best engineered album, right? So and I think the audio engineering is something I'll come back to a lot here. But to go back to just track number 2, I mean, I think this is the first track that immediately, you know, sets up a contrast from the first track, which I think is an interesting move from the part of the Marías. Because if you listen to Just a Feeling, I feel like you would expect the second track to be something else, but they really kind of, you know, go for it and set up a very high energy song with a lot of drums, the guitars, audio engineering that constantly feels potent, and it's really kind of a catchy indie pop song, not really that kind of orchestral feeling that you were maybe getting with track 1. But I mean, for me, as I said, like, big fan of this album. I love the vocals from Maria Zurdoya throughout this album. I'm just gonna, you know, spoiler alert. I don't think there's a track where I really strongly feel she missed vocally. You know, that being said, Calling You Back, maybe if I'm being critical, maybe one of the more slightly generic indie pop kind of sounds on the album, but still a really catchy tune. Really kind of a bold, high energy song that's steeped in, you know, alt rock and indie pop, just coexisting really well. Probably more pop than rock in this one, but yeah, it's a contrast, I'd say, from track 1. But what do you think, Mateo?
Definitely. I mean, I agree with a lot of your sentiments. Like, honestly, it's big sounds change up, you know, coming from Just a Feeling, going to Calling You Back. Honestly, I would even say, you know, because I listened to the album in order, I would have said if the rest of the songs all were like in the Calling You Back style, I would have been like, oh, that's almost like a fake out, going from Just a Feeling to Calling You Back. And I wouldn't have liked that. But we definitely will get into it a little later. There's other songs that give me at least the same vibe of Just a Feeling. I'm like, okay, they're just doing something a little different. Into the actual song, though, I don't know. Maybe it's not super my type of song. Definitely catchy. It definitely felt like it was supposed to be kind of one of the bigger hits. And honestly, I don't really say this a lot, though. I feel like while I didn't super vibe with it, I think I would maybe even go back to the song, and after a couple more listens, honestly, I would maybe change my mind even about it. Just being a little, just kind of just like run of the mill kind of a song that I felt. Definitely get that airiness. You really do see again the good production. That's something I will definitely be repeating a lot. Very good production. Very good production. But otherwise, it went from kind of like an indie pop-ish genre to I don't know if R&B or something's the right word to say. Like kind of midway with when the male vocals got brought into Calling You
Yeah.
Back. But
Mhm.
it definitely was kind of a swap up. But
Okay.
overall, off of just the one listen,
Mhm.
it was all right, not bad. It was good, but it led me kind of want to listen more though to the rest of the
Yeah,
Maria tracks.
agreed.
Definitely.
I think it's an attention catching song. I mean, talking about contrast, the song starts with like a dog growl, bark, immediately catches your attention, right? And I
Yeah.
think vocally speaking, it's one of Maria Zordoya's more bold vocal songs in terms of the energy and the contrast. So yeah, I mean, I personally like it. It doesn't really sit in that kind of dreamy indie category that some of this album will sit in, but I think it's one of the more indie pop banger songs. But I think it's well engineered and well sung, so I enjoy it. I think
Yeah.
it's a good one to go back to. Probably not the best, but
That's
one that
fair.
I also enjoy. Yeah.
That's fair.
All right.
Yeah, I think third track,
Yeah.
Hush.
Hush.
Yeah, I think I'll jump in on this. I think I get why it's called
Yeah.
Hush.
Yeah.
Maria definitely is kind of like has that whispery kind of bits to her singing. Especially in this song, I'll be honest. She kind of just sounds. I was like, dude, is this like Billie Eilish?
Yeah.
And
Just changing my face.
I don't mean that as a compliment, if I'm being honest. I think
Oh,
I get
okay.
why people like that type of music, Billie Eilish,
Yeah.
and even maybe this song too. But I am not a fan. I'll be honest of that whispery kind of
Sure.
vocals. Maybe it's kind of like the bedroom pop almost kind of genre or whatever. I don't know if that'd be the right
Okay.
thing to say. But
Yeah.
because honestly, I was like, wait, with Hush, I'm like, wait, aren't these guys? Are these guys like not indie? I was like, this is like a little too different. I don't know. And like later on in the song, it kind of had hints of like this almost like early 2000s pop. If that
Okay.
makes
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
sense, I was like, wait, this almost sounds like Toxic by like Britney Spears or something. It was like sounds like a little different.
Well, Mateo,
Um,
I just want to interrupt you for half a second because first of all, I just want to say I think you're spot on to an extent, and
yeah.
Billie Eilish was definitely in my notes as well. And it was interesting that you mentioned Britney Spears because there's actually a track, a single that the Marias did, which I mean personally I like it. It's a cover of "Baby One More Time"
Oh,
from
okay.
Britney.
Really?
So yeah, not surprising at all that they would be influenced a bit by that
Wow.
early 2000s
Did
pop sound.
do you have the history on that? Did that track come out? Did that cover come out before this album, or was it after? Do you know at
That's a
all?
great question.
Either
I'm
way,
googling its background, but
either way, I'm sure they, I mean, everyone knows Britney Spears. I'm sure they were at least having that maybe probably on their mind and a little bit of inspiration or something.
yeah,
I don't
and
know if I'm
it
too far
come
off
out
though
before.
saying that this
Mhm.
song had a hint of that kind of like early 2000s Britney. Maybe,
100%,
but
100%. And I think,
go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. Finish your thoughts. Finish your thoughts.
Oh no, I was just gonna go back to talking about the rest of the song for me. I don't know.
Mhm.
Overall for Hush, I thought it was a little too much going on sonically.
Okay.
It kind of kept changing up the genres, and I felt like it didn't super work. I will say though, very very good production. But and
Yeah.
the chorus was pretty catchy, and I did think that part sounded good. It just for the rest of the song, it didn't super work for me.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really fair assessment. I mean, personally, I do like the song. I mean, I also like Billie Eilish to an extent, so I didn't mind that it was similar to a Billie Eilish song or a early 2000 song because I do feel even with those genre influences, I do feel that the Marias still try and give both those types of genres sort of their own spin on it, which I think is kind of evident in Hush. But it's definitely one of the closest songs on this, if not the closest, I would say, to a pure pop song.
Mm-hmm.
There's electronic production. I mean, the vocals from Maria are just like the sound is just sonically very close to a pop song from Britney or Billie Eilish and that kind of style. Still kind of indie pop alt rock sound there. I think you could even, I think some circles might consider this a rock song. I don't know if I would agree with those circles
I don't
all
know
the
if I'd
time on
agree with that
everything,
either.
but exactly. So I mean, it's very debatable, but it's flourishing in various genres. But I think the one where it's really taking off here is the pop genre. Interestingly, I think this song is probably the one that kind of took off the most and got the Marias a lot of attention. I mean, it is kind of a catchy, attention-grabbing song. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think.
Sorry, go ahead. Finish your statement. Because I was just gonna amp up what you're saying.
I was just gonna say, I think Calling You Back and Hush together in a set really feel like, okay, let's get the pop section of this album kind of completed to an extent.
Okay, that's an interesting take that you're like, okay, using those two tracks, like we're gonna throw in our pop early on in the album, and then we're not, because I can get that. I don't really, I can't think of any other kind of just like a mainstream pop-ish like later on in the album. So I definitely could agree with that. And to what you had said earlier, what I was going to say is just a glance over on Spotify. That definitely Hush is the most listened to. It had like 41 million plays compared. Like the next closest song is like half of that, if I'm being honest. And so this definitely worked for a lot of people, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think Hush was also remixed. I want to say Still Woozy, if you know that artist, remixed Hush. And I think they really drove, I don't know if they drove it or the record label, kind of drove it, but they really wanted to push Hush. And I think, honestly, the first time I ever heard of the Marías was Hush. And it was a good song. I'm not sure if that's really the one that fully led me to discovering them, but yeah, I mean, I think that kind of covers Hush. I mean, I feel it's definitely one of their most pop type songs.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say we can go on to the fourth track, which is All I Really Want Is You. What do you think, Rishabh?
This is, you know what? I'm just gonna call it. This is my favorite track off the album. This is one that I have listened to this song way too often. Like, I'm a big fan of this one. Just the atmospheric ambient sound. I think it's, again, that contrast is amazing where you go from track 3 where, the vocals are a lot more bold. Here, I think Maria Zardoya just softens up the vocals a lot more. And you really get this sense of just audio atmosphere with this song. Fantastic engineering, I have to say. I mean, it's amazing to me that, that this band is able to make their, everybody can kind of make like their electronic production sound crisp, but the instrumentation comes off so cleanly in the Marías albums. It's truly amazing how, sonically you can still hear drum and guitar, really take shape in their album where while it's still, using audio effects and some of that electronic engineering as well. Just a very lush and evocative sound, I think, emotionally charged. And the lyrics I found to be very simple, but very poetic and powerful for me personally. There's just something entrancing about this song for me. Mateo, I'm nervous about that. Wow.
No, I mean, definitely always be nervous. It's Aux Fiends, but also like, I was just gonna say, because this isn't my favorite song, but it's not my least favorite. Honestly, I think all this praise you're giving it to this song, makes me want to like re-listen, because like maybe I was listening kind of wrong. I just thought overall, honestly, I thought it was a little more forgettable, but definitely not terrible. I was honestly just more lukewarm about All I Really Want Is You overall. You definitely have the big downshift, at least in the album, a lot calmer. But again, to me, it was more forgettable, and that's something you guys will definitely hear me say that kind of again later on the album, not to spoil anything. But it was definitely just more neutral on this song. Honestly, I even felt it might have even been better with like a collab. Maybe I don't know. What came to my mind was like Cuco. I thought he went well on this song. I don't know if they were collab before. But it was like, I feel like, especially in the later half of this song, and felt like his vocals could have worked well. But that's really all I got to say for this song, if I'm being honest.
No, that's fair, and I think the Cuco collab would have been really, really interesting. One question I want to ask you is, do you feel by track 4 that you're getting the album that was kind of promised by the first track? Like, just the feeling, that theme, that orchestral theme. Do you think track 4 is where we start seeing a hint of that, or you're not convinced that the Marías are giving what they sold?
If I'm being honest, the latter of what you said. Not yet, not on this song, not yet.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think at that point I was a little too, I had too much into my mind with that kind of like, because it's not a fake out, but at that point when listening, only being on track 4, it was the fake out of 2 and 3, and then 4, big downshift. But I just, after listening to albums, I know usually it'll kind of change up, and I think definitely in the next song and songs after that, we can kind of see a little more what I felt was, I guess, promised, or at least was going to be told that we were going to be hearing.
That's fair. I'd slightly disagree. I think we start getting at least a hint of that if we don't fully get it in track 4. But I agree that this 13-track album, we'll start hearing more interesting sounds later on in the album.
I think the best way for me to say it would be, All I Really Want Is You is like the intro to that sound. It's like introing the intro.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And even though it's my favorite track, I mean, I'm not too surprised to hear your thoughts. And honestly, I felt like you're actually, so far, Mateo, I feel you're being more positive than I expected, to be honest.
Really? Okay.
So, yeah, I was expecting a lot more fiending, but I'm happy with where you're placing things. Honestly, I think better than I expected. So
okay, that's fair.
I mean, we'll see. Speak too soon, but we'll see.
Yeah, don't speak too soon. We'll see. But
all right,
yeah,
all right.
5th track, Hable con ella.
Yep.
Rishabh.
Hable con ella. Yep. This is let's say it together, Mateo. This is the interlude.
The interlude. Come on, dude.
33 seconds long. I was so excited when I saw the runtime for this track. I think this is probably the one that I listened to the least. I mean, I was just excited because it was nice to have a clear-cut interlude after a long time on this show.
That's fair.
And it's 33 seconds. It sounds really nice, though. I think it's a lovely trumpet sound, a horn sound, I should say. I wanted to make sure I get the brass instruments right.
I gotta get them right.
But somehow they made like a horn sound very dreamy and jazzy, and I enjoy that in this 33-second interlude. What do you think, Mateo?
Dude, I loved the horn. I don't know. This is something to say too. I don't usually check while listening like how long the track actually is. So I thought this was just like a full song. Yeah. And so when the song ended, I was like, wait, did I accidentally like skip and go on to the next song? So I went back, and I never do that. So I really like this interlude. I don't know. This is where I feel like, okay, I'm getting what was told at the beginning with the intro.
So I have a question, I guess, follow-up question. Do you prefer the interlude to Just a Feeling?
I just, as a song to listen to? Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess I never really thought about that. If that would have, I don't know if this would have worked as, I guess it could have worked. But it just on the basis of as a song, yes. Because I'll be honest, this is one that I highlighted green. I'm like, if nothing else in the song, keeps with me, this actually might even be my favorite. The interlude might be my favorite off the album. It's not, but
that's fair. I'm glad you brought it up. I mean, I think like that. These are the two majorly instrumental tracks, Just a Feeling and this interlude we're talking about now. But I think this particular track is a lot more spare instrumentally. It's really just the horn mostly, I think, on Hable con ella. But Just a Feeling feels more warm and orchestral, I guess. So I prefer, if I were to listen to one back, I might prefer the first one. But the horn theme that gets introduced here, which we'll hear in various additional tracks as well, is really interesting. And honestly, I think it marks a shift in the album, which kind of starts happening. So this is really a clear case of, okay, we reach an interlude, and sonically there's about to be a switch to an extent.
Yeah, exactly. Also, I do want to quickly mention, and for case anyone who doesn't know what it means in English, it just means like talk to her. That's what Hable con ella means, just in case. But yeah.
Thanks for mentioning that. And if nothing else, Mateo, I think we can head to track 6, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Little by Little. Mateo, you want to start us off, actually?
Sure. I'll be honest, not too much to say, but like, dare I say it's a bop? I don't know. Maybe.
Okay.
I love the Spanish because I had the. I forget. Is this song all in? This isn't all in Spanish, right? It just has
No,
Spanish parts.
no. Yeah, it has
Or,
Spanish parts, and it's the first time we hear, Spanish used on this album. Yep.
yeah, but I don't know. It's too short, almost. I guess.
Okay.
I say that, but also like, if I'm trying to remember the song. If I'm being honest, this is where I'm kind of getting into the rhythm of like, it's kind of forgettable. Like I don't
Okay.
think it was like I know I literally said maybe it's a bop. Like I don't think it's bad, but it's just
Mhm.
it didn't really super stick with me. If I'm being honest, so I'm interested to hear what you think about Little by Little.
Yeah, I mean, I think somehow after the interlude, it got really interesting for me because I've heard these songs. I mean, I don't know if this is coming across well, but I've heard these songs a lot. I am, and was like a huge Maria's fan. So sitting down and taking in these songs one by one for like a review purpose was really an interesting experience. And it's interesting that you say like forgettable and that term because I do think listening to sort of the entire album, some of these songs do bleed into each other, and sometimes I think that's a really good thing, and it gives the album a lot of personality. And then sometimes I think, yeah, you have songs like Little by Little, which to me, looking back, sounds pretty similar to like something like Calling You Back. Even they're
Mm-hmm.
both kind of this indie pop sound. Um,
Yeah.
so I know we mentioned that after the interlude there is sort of a transition. I'm not sure if Little by Little is really the song for that transition. I think there's other songs still coming up where we start hearing that transition. Little by Little feels like, it's in the same category for me as, Calling You Back and Hush. But I still think, agreed, it's a really catchy indie pop song. It has a jazzy feel to it. And I think the overall sound that the Marias come up with, even when they're doing something, as traditional as indie pop, they'll keep the hallmarks of that, but they'll put their own creative spin on it to an extent. So I like this one. I don't think it's the strongest. Obviously, I already mentioned my strongest one, but yeah, it is a bop. It's kind of a banger. It's sort of an indie pop banger in that category.
Yeah. So yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's good enough commentary. I think going little by little. Unless Mateo have
Yeah.
anything to add.
Nah, not really. Honestly. Yeah, I think we can go on to the seventh track, Heavy.
Yeah, heavy.
Uh,
I
Riverside.
can start us off. Yeah, this one I have really kind of mixed feelings on, to be honest.
Hmm.
To me, this is maybe the worst track on the album, but I will say it is also the most ambitious track on the album to an extent. It has a stronger alt rock sound. Honestly, maybe moving slightly away from the indie pop sound. Great guitar riff, some really good production moments, including the ending of the song. I think the last maybe 30, 40 seconds, where it really transforms into something more like a ambient sound. And yeah, I think like an ambient sound that's more experimental for the Marias and moving away from that sort of structured indie pop thinking. So I'm gonna call it the worst song, but that's because I love this album. So
God,
take my worst tag with a grain of salt. I think it's probably the one that I maybe revisit the least. Maybe save for the interlude. But yeah, that's
that's
that's where I
fair.
stand with it. Mhm.
Like, because honestly, this is probably my first or second least favorite. I don't even know if I forgot if
Yeah,
I said it, but if it's not Heavy, which I don't think it is, would be my least favorite. I think it would be Hush. That's my least favorite.
got
But
it. Okay.
for Heavy, to stick on this, it was very slow. I mean, it's in the name. It's a
Yeah.
heavy song, especially at the beginning. And then it hit like that second verse, and I was like, whoa, okay. It went from forgettable to harmonious almost.
Mhm.
And I was like, wait, okay, maybe this song saved. It almost carried the song. And then it went back to boring after that. I didn't super care for that last half that you had said. That I guess you liked. Honestly, it was it just didn't super work for me. It's weird that the song's called Heavy because it sounds heavy, at least the beginning, but I really feel the middle part was the heavy part because that's what intrigued me and I liked, but they didn't super stick with that. Then they like threw in I think it was random French at the end.
Yes.
It just didn't super work for me. It was, again, because it was the other songs that I'd say are forgettable, not necessarily are boring, but this one, when I say forgettable, Heavy is boring. The forgettableness is because it's boring to me.
Mm-hmm.
This song.
No, I mean, I agree to an extent. I mean, it's my least favorite track. I think the Marías, they set out with the song, with, like all these songs, like with the best of intentions, but somehow this one doesn't come together. I think the way that they intended to, somehow it does grow a little repetitive. And I don't know if they were able to pinpoint a good sonic profile for this, for lack of better term there. Somehow it just it drowns it. Honestly, I like the ambient ending. For some people, I think it's gonna feel like the song is drowning itself out to an extent, and it's already not the best one. So I think Heavy, not a heavy recommend from me.
I think to kind of add on what you said a little bit, when I feel like, right, this is around halfway through the album now. I feel like when the Marías, at least in their songs, not for the whole album, but for the songs, kind of mess around a little bit genre-wise and kind of try to get a little busier, I feel like that's when it tends to not work as much, if I'm being honest. At least definitely for me. Cause
that's a really interesting observation. Yeah.
You have that in Heavy and Hush, which I feel like you see it, and I'm like, oh, these are my least two favorite songs, But that's all I really have to say about Heavy.
Okay, I think safe to move on to the next track, Mateo. If you want to start us off on Un Millón.
Yeah, for Un Millón, I like the Spanish. Again, though, this is where it goes too whispery for me. I do want to be clear. I get why people like that. Just for me, it does. I don't know what's up with my ears. I'm just not. I'm just a fan. I don't like that whispery in any songs. I'm just not ever really a fan of that kind of stuff. But in Un Millón, when Maria sings regularly, it's good. And I don't know. It's good, and I wish it was more just like that instead of the whisperiness. But I can kind of see now that's kind of their vibe or the sound, I guess. It doesn't always do it. Yeah, unfortunate for me, but I think I can't say for them to actually switch it up because it obviously works for them, and a lot of people like listening to it. But just for me, not a fan. For this song though, I really like her humming at the end. I'll be honest. And so maybe, I'll even say maybe, honestly, though, I know I kind of was negative on the whisperiness, but I think it's honestly even might be a top half song for me. Maybe it was just because I really liked the humming and then the Spanish, and it just kind of, it brought it up from being bottom half for me, so it's top half song. What'd you think?
Got it. Well, I was going to ask you, do you remember I think this track is fully in Spanish, if I'm not wrong.
I think you're right. I think this is all in Spanish.
Yeah, and one thing you notice with this track is, totally agree, the whisper vocals. Well, I do think Maria, is very good at slipping between songs in terms of her going and using that whisper voice in some, and then places she's really sounds vocally very different. Overall, I think they have that kind of intimate whispery sound that they're developing. This track in particular, this one's sort of one of the most dancey, bouncy kind of tracks on the album. Not really pop. I almost want to say somehow it just sounds like an indie dance track, almost like flashback to a while ago, almost like a Lord melodrama track or production for me. Yeah, that's a flashback. Very stylized electronic production. I like this song. Somehow it feels like there could have been more. It kind of feels almost like a really, really strong demo to me, like a demo track, but still really solid, really fun song, I would say, to listen to in terms of that kind of bouncy sound to it. I think, the Spanish vocals sounded great. Overall, I enjoy this track. Maybe one of the more forgettable ones for me, but again, coming from the perspective of I really enjoy every track to an extent of this album. So
Yeah, it's fair. Then we go to the 9th track. Then, "Spin Me Around." I'll go first because I'll be honest, I don't have too much to say. This is like dream pop, I guess. I kind of had a little bit of that. I don't think it was used throughout the whole song. I feel like maybe they kind of switched up a genre, unless maybe I need to re-listen. But all I can really remember is I wish, really, with that kind of the spinniness of the song, not to be too on the nose, I wish that was kind of carried out throughout the whole song, because I don't think it was at the intro. Maybe the first half, maybe just the first little bit of it. But honestly, again, this is where it's becoming kind of repetitive for me, where it's kind of forgettable again, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
But I don't want to be too negative on that, because at least for other than the songs I was like, okay, these are my least favorite. For the other forgettable songs, I maybe not convinced, maybe I'd go on my own, but I would maybe listen again and be like, okay, maybe I didn't give it a good enough listen the first time around. Maybe I'm just hating too much, So I think something is there, but it just hasn't clicked with me.
Okay, good, interesting thoughts. Yeah, for me, this is probably one of my favorite tracks, actually. And to me, it's maybe my second or third favorite. I think it comes in a set with me with the other one, All I Really Want Is You. They sound similar to me. They have a similar vibe to them. But I think both of these tracks, for me personally, I think the production for me comes together really well. There's an evocative, kind of emotionally charged feeling to these songs. It sounds jazzy. It has that Smoke Velvet vocals, which we were referring to. I love that you brought up dream pop. I think this definitely falls into dream pop, or almost like kind of like a stylized shoegaze song to an extent.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah,
you said that.
yeah, almost a little bit. I would say more in dream pop. I think shoegaze almost like really raw traditional shoegaze is even more acoustic. Spin Me Around, I think there's still a lot happening production wise, but I love how this song comes together. I've heard this song, listened to it several times, and it's just one I really enjoy. Yeah, I don't know what else much more to say.
Yeah,
except that
I guess no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, except that I don't mind your thoughts. I think, what you're saying about it being repetitive, like, yeah, I think that's kind of a theme I think that I'm finding in your thoughts on the album, which I don't, disagree with, which is that the sounds bleed into each other. The songs bleed into each other quite a bit. There's sort of a through line amongst the album, which for me, that works. It feels like there's a theme to it, but I get what you mean.
Yeah, and I think we'll actually probably get into that in the overall album review, because I don't want to spoil too much of it, but that's definitely a big theme of where I'm saying forgettable, but not bad. But I'll save the rest of that for later. Did you have anything else to say for Spin Me Around?
No, I think that covers it, which takes us into the next track, The Mice Inside This Room. Interesting track, Mateo, for me, but I want to hear it from you first.
Yeah, if you don't mind, can I go first? Because I was going to say, with Spin Me Around, you said dream pop to maybe shoegaze, where with The Mice Inside This Room, this is where I'm like, is this kind of like shoegaze? Because I think this is definitely a more shoegaze song than the previous one. I think this is almost kind of bordering it. It's not necessarily shoegaze, maybe, but it's definitely bordering this. Honestly, this is my favorite track of it, because to me this is the most
very respectable favorite track.
This is different. It's hypnotic. It feels like I'm falling down. Really good production again. Like I'm glad I have good headphones, because I can feel, it just feels like it's lots of back and forth with the vocals and the instruments. It's overall, it really worked for me, and it felt very hypnotic. And I'll even say, because it has a really long end. At first, I did not like that part, but then it just turned like beautiful. And for me, that's just kind of why you kind of get that. At least, what am I saying? With the kind of the shoegaze, they actually kind of stuck with one different genre than maybe I think what they always kind of go with, and I think that's where it landed. With the other songs where they kind of maybe throw around a little too much, and at least for me personally, in other songs it hadn't worked. But with this, when they do something different and they're kind of going in at least, barely nudging against shoegaze, to me it really worked.
Yeah, hard agree on everything you're saying. I think this is maybe one of the most stylistically kind of coherent but also ambitious and experimental tracks. Honestly, I'd heard this track a few times before, but this is one of those ones that had a new life for me when I sat down and listened to it and kind of wrote down my thoughts. I think there's something really dark, intriguing, and moody about this track, which sets it apart from a lot of the other tracks. It feels more ambitious. The orchestral end, I think that you were kind of referring to. I don't know if you heard this, Mateo, but to me it sounded like the exact same theme from Just a Feeling, or really similar. So for me, I really enjoyed that flourish at the end. But this song is, definitely worth a special mention. I think this is one, if you want to get to know some of the Maria's best work. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I would have said this before, we're kind of sitting down and reviewing this album, but The Mice Inside This Room is actually worth listening to.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree on that. About the Just a Feeling, I just thinking about it, definitely on the listen, I didn't recognize that, but kind of thinking back to the songs, I do know what you kind of mean, where the orchestral kind of opens up, not right when it starts, but kind of in the middle of that. I can agree on that standpoint of where that's kind of similar.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So you feel that this is sort of the expectation you had from the Marías when you first started listening. Is that right?
So for it, definitely The Mice Inside the Room, the interlude, Hable con ella, I feel like I got that. Definitely in at least those two tracks, I feel like I definitely got it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Cool. So I think this one gets a pretty sizably big recommend from us both.
Yeah, that AF stamp on it. Listen to that one.
Yes, definitely.
I think we can
go. So let's say goodbye to that one, Mateo. Let's go on to say hello to the next track, which is called "To Say Hello." Not "Say Hello," "To Say Hello." You gotta be very careful about titles.
Okay, Rishabh, I've had enough of your cheesy intros, dude. Just because of that, I'm gonna go first on this, dude. To Say Hello.
Go for it.
I think the song should have been all in Spanish. I don't know. I think it would have given it a little more to grab you with. Because To Say Hello is just honestly again forgettable, and I don't know how to explain it because I don't want to say I'm not trying to be too negative on it. But to me, it's almost every line, every kind of verse, sonically sounded the same. Not that they were saying the same, even the same words. It was just kind of the cadence where it just sounded the same. I think that's where, at least for To Say Hello, became forgettable for me, because I definitely felt like the instruments and the beat carried this song, but with the vocals, it felt kind of the same. Again, she wasn't singing the same lines over and over for repetitiveness.
Yeah.
It just, to me, in this song, they all just kind of blended together. So I don't know if you could, what would your thoughts be on what I said? I don't know if you felt that at all or not.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I enjoy this track quite a bit. I mean, this is probably, again, top half for me to an extent. But I do agree with what you're saying. I mean, that's what I was, I guess, mentioning earlier to an extent, is the songs, they blend into each other. But for me, that somehow works because the tonality of the entire album is, so dreamy and kind of has that feeling to it. It's sort of a dreamy cinematic album that somehow I actually enjoy that aspect of, not the fact that they, individually sound similar. I do think that they're disparate or differentiated enough where you can enjoy each one for what it is, but as a body of work, I think it flows together well. For me, To Say Hello is again, one of the stronger tracks for me. I'd say it's catchy. It has that lush vocal to it. The music feels propulsive. And again, one thing I really enjoy amongst, all of these tracks is that production value is something you can hear. Like it's hyper stylized production. I feel like the Marias have a clear vision, at least for the most part, of the I guess theme that they're going for sonically, and I feel that's evident in the song like "To Say Hello."
Yeah.
So slightly countering you, Mateo, but I don't think you've said anything that's
Yeah.
absolutely heretical and crazy.
Yeah.
I think it
No,
makes sense. Your thinking makes sense.
I would even almost counter your counter where I think we're almost a little bit saying the same thing. Where to me, I said like instrument be carried, and while you said like the production, you pumped up the production. I think I actually realized while you were saying that I'm like I have not been giving enough applause to the production, even though every song has been
Yeah.
maybe there's a lot of the songs have been a little forgettable, or I haven't liked every single song super well. I can absolutely say that the production is A+ on this album
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
far. Like
Agree.
I think they definitely had the plan. Did you say it was the I forgot what was his name? Does he do the producing? Was Conway something?
Yes. Yes. I
He
think he is
produces
the main
stuff?
producer. Yes. Hmm.
Yeah, he definitely deserves applause for that because everything it's even when I feel like the vocals sometimes maybe blend in, it's the
Sure.
beat that is still there. So they definitely are doing well in that aspect. I literally no notes for production wise for any track on the album. If I'm being honest,
Gotcha.
I just
Gotcha.
I wanted to make that clear with everything I've been saying. But to
Yeah.
wrap up
No,
to say
that makes
hello,
sense.
I have nothing else to say for that. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that captures our thoughts pretty well. Moving on to the second to last track on the album. This is an interesting one. Fog is a Bullet, Mateo. What do you have to say on this one?
Um, I might be forgetting. This is not. There's lyrics in this, right? It's
Yes,
not another
there's.
instrumental.
I think this one's all in Spanish. Yes, it is.
Oh, in Spanish. Okay. Okay. Because I even have it as like, is this like a second interlude almost? Just, but I think that's for me. It's coming more from a place as it felt very soft. I liked it. It was like a nice lullaby. Definitely more
Yeah.
of like a middle
Hmm.
of the road kind of song, though. At least for the overall album, not
Okay.
bad. It was just very soothing. And I
Okay.
honestly I don't even mind the placement either, kind of being at the end, especially for what we're about to get afterwards. But
Yes.
I don't really have any too crazy positive or negative things to say for Fog as a Bullet. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, sounding like a broken record, but I like this one. This one, but I resonate a lot with what you're saying in terms of a lullaby or making it sound soothing. I think for me, this is probably the closest to like a shoegaze ballad. It's probably instrumentally the most simple, really carried by Maria's vocals on this one. I think, there's obviously orchestral finishes to it, and I love the horn section on this one. By the way, it sounds really distant and smoky. Almost sounds that you're gonna feel mad about this, Mateo, but this is where I can see like say Junior to an extent. Maybe say Junior
No,
Junior. Hear me out. I
no,
can at least see where I can at least see how that trickles down in this with that distant horn. There is kind of a cool jazz feel to it. I know you're gonna
I,
react, but
I don't agree with it. I mean, finish your statement, but I don't agree with that.
well, I would just encourage you to go back and just listen to that horn section of this one, and you might see what I'm saying at least 30-40%.
Okay.
You
Maybe
know,
a junior upside. I guess I just to me they're just so far. They're just so different,
yeah,
right? Where like I get
no,
what
they
you're
are.
saying with kind of the horns and like the jazz. I feel like it's more of like a jazz influence than just like a pure kind of
Yeah,
jazzy songs. If I'm
yeah,
being
yeah,
honest,
yeah. That's what
I
that's
feel
what I
like
meant,
they're
I guess.
different, right? Maybe they're in the same house, but they're in different rooms. If you put like
Sure.
say it in Maria's for the kind of music.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to carry that metaphor even further, I would even say it's not in same house. It's same neighborhood, but I mean, it's still
That's
there. I think I feel like they're kind of cut at least from some of the same cloth, and somehow it just I had to bring up that horn section. This reminded me of that a little bit. But
fair.
no, yeah, I like this one. I think this is probably the most shoegaze track on the album. I go as far as giving this like from my end only like certified AF recommend or whatever we're calling it these days.
I don't know.
Uh,
I don't know if we have a word for it.
just
But yeah.
just so you can hear Maria's vocals, sort of more isolated, just for that reason, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, but I think that covers that. And interestingly, track 13 is called "Talk to Her."
Yeah.
Mateo, sound
Again,
familiar?
it does, just in English. Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically. I
So
get
where do we
it.
even start?
Where I can start if you don't know where,
Yeah.
but
You start.
at first I was like, wait, is this like Charlie Brown music? But I want to make it clear, good thing.
That's harsh.
It's like,
I don't know.
no, not harsh. I like that. I like Charlie Brown music.
Yeah,
This is right at the beginning because she doesn't like sing in this, at least at the beginning. It's more it's just like spoken word, I guess. It's just speaking.
Spoken word. Mm-hmm.
Right. One thing I feel like we've heard a lot recently, definitely just overall in music nowadays, but from the past couple albums we've talked about, there's always I'm noticing a trend where there's that track where it's like that recorded kind of just like, usually it's a quick interlude or intro of someone speaking, but this is the closer, right? And so it was kind of long, like it was I have it
more than 5 minutes.
Yeah, it was more than 5 minute track. And I think it's just interesting because I feel like you really, at least in Talk to Her, you really see, I think, why artists are doing it, because it just gives that personalness for the listener to the artist. And I think you can really see it in that. Now, will I actually listen back to at least just that part of the track? No, because it's just her talking, really. But I really loved the ending part, the Don't Stop Giving Up. It sounded almost like a musical Armageddon. I don't know if I'm too crazy saying that. It just kind of kept amping up. It got super busy, but it worked for me. Like, if I'm being honest, if I could say one, like that last half, just one part of a song could be my favorite, that last half would maybe be my favorite off the album if it was on its own.
Interesting.
I really like that. So what are your thoughts on Talk to Her? Because I don't know which way you're going to go with this.
Let's say I could do a separate podcast just about this track. First thing I want to say is, to me, this is the jazziest, close to jazziest song on the album. And hear me out. I mean, obviously it fits within the Maria's wheelhouse instrumentally, but I still feel, you were mentioning this entire thing of artists, keeping their ad libs or, some of their in-studio vocals. I think this is a little different because it's such a conscious choice by the group to include this very lengthy, I'd say pretty lengthy spoken word poem that's recited through the entire track, at least for I would say 60% of the track is, this spoken word, poem set to music. And I want to call out just the fact that how difficult that is to do. Like, think about it, right? You have this really, I think, interesting poem, I'll say, that you want to set to music, and it still has to, it's carrying the weight of it, has to sound, coherent with the words that, Maria is saying, but it also has to fit in musically with the album. And then the added pressure of, we're putting this as like the final track on the entire album. So this is what you're going to stick with, once you've finished listening. And I think they did an incredible job doing that. For me, I love the poem. I always find it very intriguing, and I love how they set it to music. Actually, I disagree. I don't love the ending of the song as much, but it's not. I don't take offense to it or anything. I think it's fine. And it's interesting how you describe it. I think I saw it from a different perspective. The way
I take offense to what you're saying, but
really,
I really liked that ending part. I loved it. Okay. I loved the ending part. Like, when I said it sounded like a musical kind of Armageddon, that's just me. It's becoming super, super busy and full, and I feel like it really fills you up. And not to interrupt your flow, but I want to push back a little bit on what you're saying. Maybe not in the way you might think, though. because I agree with the jazziness. I do think this is also maybe the most jazzy song. I said Charlie Brown music. That's like jazz. Yeah. But also about the kind of the ad lib, the spoken word, the poetry. I didn't think it was bad. There's no negative for me. To me, this was a good closer. I just thought it was interesting. I'd almost even go to say I think all the ad libs we've heard so far, at least on Aux Fiends, and even just maybe by myself, I feel like this is the pinnacle of a recorded ad lib speaking poetry. Like this is what I think other artists are trying to do, and I think they oftentimes miss the mark. But I think the Marías in this actually hit it down. I think they actually really got it down with this. Like to me, this is the ad lib of the listener feeling close and personal to the musicians and the artist. Because I think it actually really worked.
Yeah, I guess not to I guess keep going on this topic too much, but do you feel that in my mind this feels like a conscious creative choice and like a poem recital, whereas I think I'm just thinking back even a few episodes back when we were thinking about the first song on the Tyla album, where it's kind of like, okay, you're hearing some conversations that are like, unrehearsed. Yeah. And I think there's a differentiation. I hear what you're saying. I think it's one of maybe the best examples of an artist like speaking on a track, but it's almost not an ad lib because I feel like it's so much of the song and it's such a fully formed poem.
Yeah, that, I don't want to be too get too much
technical
into the semantics of it. Yeah, because exactly. I think we're almost pointing to the same thing. I think I'm just saying it in a different way that maybe not be hitting for you. Where I feel like you take like Tyla for example. I think because they've seen other artists have seen it being popular and this being a popular thing to do. Not to say that the Marías were the first to do it. I think they aced it though in this. Where I think that's where maybe some artists like Tyla don't necessarily get what's the point of doing it, and so they just throw in something a little more random and not have as much juice in there. Yeah, when I think Marías got it down on lock. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so I think they just think it's like, oh, okay, well, everyone's doing it.
They put thought into it. They put thought into it, I guess.
There's just a lot more thought. I think we can agree on that.
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed, 100%. All right, I think that covers Talk to Her, which brings us, Mateo, to the end of this album. So I want to hear, I feel like I got a good sense of where you are with the album, and I want to say on record that I think it went better than I expected, honestly. But I want to get your side. I want you to speak and tell me what you think in conclusion.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm kind of all over the place.
Okay.
Weirdly, I don't usually say this about albums. It felt too short. But it was also like 40 minutes, if I'm not wrong, right?
35, I think.
35? Okay.
Yeah, little short.
It is a little shorter than I thought it was an average album size, but it definitely, to me, I think it could have been maybe an extra couple tracks or two. Actually, I'll even get into that because the thing I noticed is I guess there are the songs I even almost kind of, some of them I liked, where like the interlude and the closer and the intro, where those aren't, I think those aren't like the main songs people are actually listening to, unless you're, Maria's head like you. But those are definitely, I felt like more, I don't want to be too, I don't want to say this in the negative context, but it felt more like padding, where I feel like if they only had one of those, then the album as a whole maybe would have fit together, but it felt a little more lacking because I think there was just too much of that, the quote padding of those songs, where I feel like if they added just not taking anything away, but added more of just like a regular one of the María songs, I think it would have worked more coherently, like as an album. It just felt like I was missing a little something. Well, with me saying all that, I'm very neutral on the Marías. And I say that because I would absolutely listen to the Marías again. And I would even say there's a couple tracks I would, go back to. Not that I liked the ones I just thought were maybe forgettable and that you kind of praised. And I'm like, okay, maybe I just need to give it a different ear. Maybe I need be sitting down different. I just need to be in a different headspace. Maybe it might click just because I felt a good amount just didn't super click for me.
Gotcha.
It was just that, but like overall though, the vocals, the instrumentation, the genre, the mix of Spanish and English, the amazing production. Because I even said that's, I think, the best part of the Marías. The production is just super good. All of that is stuff I like, and it's works for me. Other maybe take away a little bit of like the whispery vocals, because usually that does not hit for me, and I'm not a super fan. It's just all of the things I said, though, at least just on this, because this is the only time I've ever heard any of these songs. They just didn't super click. And so I think that's why I'm kind of more middle of the road.
Got it.
And I don't hate me for the rating, because I want to. It's the best of that rating. I would maybe even say, but out of 10, I give Cinema a 6.
I'm not going to be offended by that. I think, as I mentioned, I think it went better than I expected with you. I think I wasn't sure. I mean, I shared a few songs, maybe not off this album, but I shared a few songs with you from Marías. And I know your feedback had been positive, but still I was like a little nervous about how you would feel. So I feel like a 6 coming from you. I feel good about that, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm not too offended. Yeah.
Okay, that's good then. Yeah.
Even as
I wouldn't say, yeah, I wouldn't say I'm like a Marías fan, or like you, but I would, if they put new stuff out and you send me a couple of their tracks, or I just like randomly come across them, like I would absolutely check them out, because I think they got something there. I think my rating is more. I think the average person would even actually rate the album maybe even higher, maybe a 7 or an 8. I just think for me, some of it just didn't click. And I don't know if that's just me right now, or if that's how I actually feel, but 6 out of 10, not bad, at least from me. But
no, yeah, I think at least I'm in a good place with you. I feel good about what you're saying. Yeah, for me, I mean, it was interesting as an experience, I guess, because I'd listened to the album very often. As I mentioned, I had drawn a lot of creative inspiration from it as well. And it was interesting to sit down, as I mentioned, and really go track by track and pay attention and focus in on some of these tracks. And my major takeaway is, for me, the two main things that you already mentioned, Mateo, is, I mean, the production really stands out for me, even more than the vocals to an extent, because the engineering work, the production work, it's, like I mentioned, like they're playing with a good amount of genres here, I would say. I mean, it's stylistically very similar, but I still think that they're, using various types of instrumentation. But somehow, even when they're using electronic instrumentation and orchestras and so many different kind of styles, the sound, I don't know what it is about how they mix this album. It comes off very clear and very, I don't know, just each instrument, you can kind of hear each instrument playing and building the song, which I think is something really, really unique about the way that this album is mixed, and it helps that they had such a coherent vision for the album. Again, I would still, definitely call out the vocals, right, from Marías or Doya. I think she's got something special vocally. I think her voice cadence works really well for this band, because the style of songs that they're doing, the different genres that they're playing in. I mean, I think she's equally equipped in like a shoegaze type song, as well as something like a Hush or like a Calling You Back, where it's sort of a louder indie pop song. So I think she makes that transition really, really well. And for me, I think the main thing is I just love the style around this album, the way the instruments come together to put you in that, I want to say, dream pop, indie pop zone. And, there's great audio engineering in terms of the different effects that they sometimes use. There's a real sense of vision and style. Now, all that being said, here's an interesting bit that I felt while listening to this album. And maybe it's because we're coming off of the Sade album review. When you really go and listen to these tracks, and maybe it's, again, coming off of listening to somebody like a Sade, I do feel to an extent, that there's a lot more potential for the Marías. I think their sound, it's seasoned, but there's still a sense of little bit of rawness that you feel occasionally, where you feel like, okay, this sound could really grow into something bigger or something more, I guess, I don't know how to put it, I guess more polished. I feel like there's scope for more polish, which is going to be really interesting going into their new album, which is coming out, Submarine, which I've already started kind of listening to the singles from, but I won't get into that too much. I think there is some of that polish coming in, but I think there's still room to grow for sure. But as a fan, and I've gone on for so long, but as a fan, I would say for me, I'm at an 8 out of 10, which I feel is quite reasonable.
I think that's fair. I'm surprised I guess the latter half, you talk about the polish, you don't say it's like you give it even higher rating, because I know how much of a fan you are. So yeah. I think 8 out of 10 is honestly, it's reasonable. I think it's very reasonable. And I think to go away from your rating, expand more of what you're talking about polish, because I think there's an interesting choice of words where I don't know if you'd agree or not. I don't feel like the polish they need is what a lot of other artists need. The polish isn't with the mixing or production. Yeah. I don't think it's at all. Right. I think it's honestly with the artistic choices. I think where they're not that they're finding their sound, because I think they have their sound. I think that it's just the
songwriting, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of the songwriting, but it's also the branching out that they do, kind of almost in the different kind of indie genres that maybe stick. Instead of you throwing a bunch of different the kind of the differences in the genres into one song, just stick. Mm-hmm. You can still do different genres, but just do them in different songs, I think. And I think that's maybe where they would excel in, because I definitely do agree. I think they have a lot of potential, and it's a definitely different critique than at least I would give to a lot of other bands or artists and such.
But. Yeah, and one thing I just wanted to add really quickly is, I feel that there are bands who have done what the Marías have done. They've done it better. It's just that nobody's doing it better right now. And that's kind of where I feel I come in as a fan, is I don't hear a lot of music right now, which is maybe up to par at where this band is at. Whereas I do think, obviously, there's other indie pop and dream pop and shoegaze acts and even jazz acts. You think about Sade and all these people who have done this better, in the past or, before. But right now, I feel that collation of genres, I feel like I don't see anyone really doing it as well as the Marías. I just don't think anyone could do the Marías as well as the Marías right now, I guess, is to put it in a sentence.
I almost want to push back against that. Just to be clear, are you saying you think no one else is doing it right now, or that they're just the best at what they're doing?
Well, I feel that the sound or the sonic profile in which they're operating, I don't know if there's anyone else doing it better at the moment. I'm sure there's strong contenders, but for me, this band is the one that I gravitate to the most right now, which is, gotcha. I mean, all different ways of saying I'm a fan, I guess.
Yeah, and that's fair. I just, because I want to be clear, that's why I wanted to clarify, because I feel like this is a very popular genre, the dream pop, bedroom pop, the indie pop. Sure. It's very indie alternative, but it has the poppiness, the whisperiness, where there's a lot of other artists I could name. I think they're doing the same thing. But not to, because I don't want to say this to take away from them, because I think it's actually important, because I don't feel like a lot of artists are doing that. I think maybe a big part of it is what's different is literally the language. It's Spanish and English. I think that's where a lot of other artists aren't doing that. Like the closest thing I could think of is maybe a Cuco, but he's different. It's like a different sound.
Different sound. Yeah, agree.
No,
I think that's a good point.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, I guess not too much to push back against what you said. But yeah.
Okay. Good. No, I think we had a good, fruitful discussion on this album. I think it went in interesting directions, and we got to, I think, talk even, through this album, we even got to talk about the current state of indie pop to an extent. So that was a kind of cool way to end the album review. So you're at a 6, I'm at an 8, but that brings us to the end of Cinema by the Marías, which means, Mateo, without taking too much further time, I'm eager, nervous, I'm trepidatious to hear your
whatever that means. Trepidatious, yes. Rishabh, I'm nervous, eager, trepidatious, whatever you
boy.
said for this album. I don't want to say it's a curveball, but it might be. This is not a new album for my own listening tastes. This is I know a lot of the tracks. I really like them a lot. But for you, these genres that are in this album, this time period, this music, I don't think I've ever really. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I've ever really heard you, at least ever listen to this band. And the album choice, I'm going emo with it.
Oh.
Came out in 2010. Is Selfish Machines by Pierce the Veil.
Okay, so let me
quickly
react. Let me quickly react. Okay,
react. Yes.
My question is, I have two concerns here, real quick, and I feel like I don't want to take too much of this episode. Just two quick questions. Which is, first of all, interesting that there's an emo album in 2010. I mean, I kind of associate that era with emo. I guess I associate more like 2003, 2004. So that's observation one. And I guess my question is it more like is it more My Chemical Romance, or is it more like what kind of emo gradient are we in here?
Okay, so to answer what you said, I mean, emo is forever.
Yes.
But I guess yeah. I don't. What was the second band you said? Because I would definitely kind of be in the vein of like MCR, kind of. But
yeah,
like
MCR. Yeah.
Pierce the Veil has such their own sound. Where like the actual, I don't. Again, this is not the Pierce the Veil episode, but like their genre, at least for this album, it's all over. It's emo, metalcore influence, pop punk, post hardcore. It's hard to kind of define them with one. But I'm excited to make you have a listen to this, though.
I'm excited too, and I think I might. As of now, I'm saying I think I might surprise you. But let's see. Let's find out.
Yeah, we'll see. It'll be a very interesting
conversation.
And listen,
sure.
I'm nervous, eager, trepidatious, everything. Rishabh.
All right, perfect.
Leaves us at the end. Right. Anything else to say?
No, I think thanks again, everyone. And believe it or not, our Pierce the Veil episode will be our 15th episode on Aux Fiends. So I know, thanks for listening. I know you guys all waited. All of you millions of followers have waited for years.
Yes.
For years. We took a break in between, but I think between me and Mateo, we're really excited to finally get to the 15th episode, even if it took a couple years. But that's 15 albums, Mateo. 15 albums and
15 albums,
15 hours of
listen to talk. That's honestly crazy, but we'll get more into that on the actual 15th episode.
I agree.
Thank you all the millions of listeners. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Craig.
Thanks for your album choice, Rishabh. Wasn't too bad. Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.